of the longtime sponsors of the show is Dogtra. Eric and I are actually both field staff guys. So Dogtra has been committed for over 20 years to crafting training collars to perfect precise fit and finish and intuitive design and accountable performance. The 1900 SE collar demonstrates what they strive for, which is an ultimate dog training tool that is durable, dependable, and designed for the most demanding conditions. And I actually use this thing at the kennel. They have the new black one that has the lock and the boost feature on it as well as the hands-free, which we use a ton. If you guys follow me on social media, you see that I use that during tracking, and we do that negative reinforcement trick, which is what is the collar that we're using. The other thing is the YS600. So funny fact, that stands for Yo, Shut Up. The number of times that you won't have to say it because it works every time. So use the discount code WDR10 for 10% off any single item over $200. And of course, they also have the popper and the dropper, which I think I have 5 of at the kennel. I use all the time. So hit them up, dogtra.com, WDR10 for 10% off a single item over $200.
All right, everybody, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite from HYATT 2023 in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Eric Stambro from Canton, Ohio. Sitting across the table from me is Ted Summers from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Ted, what is going on?
Not a lot. For those that don't know, Phoenix is hot.
Yeah.
Like super hot. Like it's like, I mean, I'm from Oklahoma and we deal with heat, but holy cow. You and I went and walked to get bagels this morning for breakfast at like 7 a.m. and
I had to shower. You just walked a quarter mile to get bagels and came back. I had to jump in the shower.
And this hotel is super nice, but I think it used to be a casino.
You really?
Because there isn't a straight hallway in this place.
No, this is true, yeah.
It's like 9 right turns to get to my hotel room, and I don't go in a circle. Like, I don't understand.
I had to put crumbs out, man, just to find an elevator. It was like
a super nice hotel, though.
Yeah, I'm like, it can't be further. I'm all the way in the back, like next to some trash chute or something. How was your class this morning?
It was full. We had 100 and something people in there, and it was full. We had a lot of attendees and a lot of engagement. So we've done this one enough that we have it pretty much down to the second now, and like I think I was at an hour and like
58
an hour like 57 minutes or something. So yeah, I mean we've gotten it down to an art now, but yeah, it's we had to pull a video out that I've been using from something because the guy from the Michigan State Police was acquitted last week. So I'll be interested to see how that falls out. And you teach tomorrow. What are you doing?
Tomorrow morning, teaching, it's called Removing Conflict from Your Training, which is basically my e-collar without conflict class. I just renamed it for this and revamped the PowerPoint a little bit. Still going to show some e-collar stuff because that's, the tone avoidance is a big thing in there. Cool thing is there's going to be a couple guys in the class that have been through the class and are big users of it. And we had a guy come up to both of us from Utah who was in my class at the Fun House who said it saved his career. The way I taught him what to do with the e-collar. So I was pretty cool with it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So typical of what we do at these conferences is we love, as you guys know, to get 6, 7, 8 of these 30-minute episodes done. We snag people, vendors, trainers, handlers, anybody that we can, and we get some good, interesting content. We had some people reach out to us and go, "Hey, man, you never have any females at the conferences on the podcast. Maybe you should do an episode." And so that was a great idea. So yesterday, we walk in and we see our good old buddy Ken Pavlik, who's been on like episode 5 or some shit. It's 8, maybe way back in the day.
Come back on too, but
yeah. And we see him everywhere. Him and his wife at all of these things, and he volunteered her, so which was smart because he goes, "I heard you're wanting females, man. I'm telling you, my wife, she did this and this forever," and so he tricked her and told her he was taking her downstairs to give her some lunch, and we stole her, and here we are. So with us is Laura Griffith from Pacific Coast Canine. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here. And I did not know that part that Ken suggested that. So yeah, we'll be having a chat later.
Sorry.
And I agree with you. I agree with you on the heat thing. I was born in Canada, and it's just killing me. I think HYATT's 2025 should be in Alaska if I had a choice. But
So Pacific Coast Canines is a very successful company you're in Portland, Oregon. I mean,
no, we're in Washington State. Yeah. We're 2 hours north of Seattle. Almost right on the Canadian border on I-5.
You can spit to Canada pretty close.
You pretty much can.
So we'll get into that part, like what you guys specialize in, what you're doing. But let's go back all the way back to when you were up in Canada And we have no Canadian females either. We've done females. I don't think we've had any from Canada on.
I'm trying to think. I don't think we have either.
Yeah. But let's go all the way back and talk about like when you got into dogs, how that worked, what you were doing up there, and we'll go from there.
Sure, sounds good. Well, I was born in Canada, but I have dual citizenship, so that will come into play later. Yes, but I started working for Canada Customs it's going back, 1991. In 1999, I'd always been interested in the canine program. I'd done some plainclothes, drug units and gang units and stuff like that, but always interested in canine. And they had a great reputation. Their program, you're probably familiar with. Andy, Wyman from HYATT, Broward County used to train with the Canada Customs program. Oh, okay. So they used to train a bunch of agencies for Florida, that kind of thing. So anyway, in 1999, I got the position. I actually turned down a supervisor position to take it. They kind of do a ranked list, and I ended up placing first on both. And I turned down the supervisor, and one of my chiefs said, "You are destroying your career. What are you thinking? Canine will get you nowhere. It's the end of your career." Well, so I kind of laugh at that now. Yeah. But anyway, so fantastic program. We did a 10-week program in Rigaud, Quebec. Came back to Vancouver. One of the issues, though, was your trainers are so far away. And we were kind of on our own, and there was the few handlers that were there. We all had about the same level of experience, and there's really nowhere. I mean, where do you get some help? And I try to, we tried to say, well, we need to go to a conference. We need to do this. We need that. Well, you just want to go and kind of screw off for the day. Yeah. And I said, look, my supervisor has no canine experience. He can't help me. I can't go to Canine 101 at the local college. So, we ended up going to. There was a Pacific Northwest conference that was held actually in Vancouver, and it was both classroom and hands-on. And anyway, and that's where I met the infamous Ken Pavlik, who that's kind of an ongoing story too. But for 2 years, he was Mr. Hey, baby, kind of try. And I was like,
he does that to me too.
Yeah, right? he does it to everybody. He's like that. But I was like, no, I'm here. It's hard enough. Interesting that you're doing the females in law enforcement. Because I said it's hard enough as a female in any kind of law enforcement to get taken seriously. And as a dog handler, I think even more so. I always said, you know what, you have to shoot 5 times better. You have to run your dog better. You have to just to get taken seriously. So I'd have nothing to do with Ken at these things. So after 2 years, he was actually flying out. Of course, I'm working at the airport. And I said, well, when you fly out, maybe we can grab a coffee or something. And I found out later he called me the queen of the frozen north because I was giving him the cold shoulder. But anyway, so that's how Ken and I met. So to go back, I ran my dog just for 3.5 years, I guess. I was running my dog on 9/11. Interesting, Vancouver Airport, because when everything happened in New York, they started diverting planes to Vancouver and to other places. And of course, people had cell phones, but there wasn't Wi-Fi on planes. So people are getting off these planes. We're having to clear the people. Then we've got to clear the planes and the luggage. And people didn't know what was going on. Like, why are we here? It was a pretty crazy time. I think we ended up with something like 50 747s coming into Vancouver. And the crazy, it was nuts. And of course, I had a drug dog. So I'm like, I don't have a bomb dog. But they wanted me out there running my dog on stuff, mainly to make it look good, like we're doing something. So they'd offload people at the terminal. They'd take the plane far out from the terminal onto the tarmac. And then we'd have to take all the luggage off. We're going through, and we had some other people, other agencies helping us. I won't name names, but prying bags open with crowbars and stuff. And at this point, we don't know. I mean, is something going to blow on one of these planes? So anyway, that was interesting. And for probably 6 months after that, my agency wanted me at the jetway when people would come off planes in my traffic jacket. And if people asked me what my dog was searching for, I was supposed to say everything. Yeah. Because, and this was a local policy. So it was, they just wanted to make people feel better. And I mean, I've got a drug dog. Yeah. My dog can't find a bomb.
Let's go back real quick. Everybody in these episodes likes to know about the dog. What was the breed, name?
His name was Hunter. I had a big chocolate lab. Ken always likes to say, he's got a couple scars on his hand from that dog. I mean, but he was he pretty much and a great dog, fantastic personality. But if you got in the way of his Kong, then you were going to get into trouble. But no, he was a fantastic dog. They do strictly single purpose, obviously Canada Customs for people that aren't familiar with it, just drug detection. I think in the past they had the odd shepherd, but they've gotten away from that. It's strictly labs, the odd Springer, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Usually I like to ask, so what did you not like about the dog? Now, I think I have an idea. The possessiveness of the Kong would probably be, and the fact he would put holes in your hand.
Oh, he put holes in my hand. I was actually doing a demo for a high school gal one time, and she was doing a story on working dogs, and of course she's filming the search, and I go to reward him, and he goes to grab the Kong and got me just in the web of my hand, and I've got blood running down my arm, and I'm like, cut. One of the better ones was I went one time to grab the Kong from him after I'd rewarded him on a search, and I pulled the Kong kind of across my body, and he goes to re-grip the Kong, and he got me in my right boob. But the best part was I didn't have a vest on at the time, and so we wrote up a report for my supervisor and went in there, and I'm dead serious, and of course I got all my guys hanging around the corner, and I was like, I think we're going to need like reconstructive surgery, and we're going to have to do it. And you could just see this supervisor sweating bullets, and it was like, I'm kidding, dude. Well, we had fun with it. But no, he was a great dog. He was a super high energy dog, and I loved working the dog, but the politics where I was working killed it for me.
Yeah.
We searched people. The fact that you're at the airport, like I go in and search 1,200 people at a time. While in Canada, you line up before you get your bag, so you're lined up at the booth to present. Okay, so you know it. Yeah. And so I'm searching people all the time. Well, I had a chief who decided he didn't want the dog to find marijuana. And of course, now I think things have changed a lot, but I mean, this is in 2001. And so he wouldn't let me search people anymore. But once a year, I had to go into that terminal and search 1,200 people to pass the certification. And I said, you can't test me on something that I'm not allowed to do. And searching people, for anyone who's done it, it's a real different ballgame than searching an inanimate object, whether it's a car.
Yeah, I never did that. I never ran any dogs that trained or trained a dog that ran people.
The United States is a little different.
Well, it's a little, but the fact that you're at the border in Canada, you're subject to search.
Yeah.
So
we do that too, but they don't like us to, because I know in Europe it's a thing. There's actually got dogs in Europe that have helped solve like rapes and stuff based on dog alert. And then in the United States, like we don't sniff people like that.
The fun part of it was the reactions. And I mean, sometimes you wouldn't believe some of the situation. We had a hit on a guy, and it turned out he was on his honeymoon. They'd been married for 2 days, and she had no idea, one, that he had coke, and he had, I don't remember what all on him, and had a huge, long criminal record, and wasn't getting into Canada anyway. But she literally found out when the dog hit on her, and she's screaming out, "I'm divorcing you!" And we had some. Another one was a gal with it was a bank, big bank, and they, as an incentive thing, they sent all of these executives on a trip to Vancouver. So this entire plane load is executives from this bank and family members. And this one was kind of bad. And the gal's like 16-year-old son, he's got a pocket full of joints. And of course the dog hits on her or hits on him in front of all of her coworkers. And I mean, so working people made for some interesting scenarios for sure.
Yeah. So after 9/11, did they shift to bomb dog focus? Like, was that a big no?
No, I think
that's weird.
They finally got one later, but I hate to say I'm in there. I love Canada, love a lot of things about it, but it was always we're Canadian. Everyone likes us. It won't happen here.
Right.
And you've seen that even with a lot of other stuff in law enforcement. Like, for years it was, we don't have guns because we're in Canada. Well, yeah, they
have a lot.
All the bad guys have guns. Sorry. It's just, and not everyone likes you just because you're Canadian.
I'll tell you what, man, like your border patrol takes their job super seriously.
Yeah.
We were up there for an HRD in October, and our RCMP contact and the Canadian Border Patrol guy were politely yelling at each other back and forth about me and Ray coming into the country.
Oh, yeah.
And we needed a work permit, and we didn't need a work permit, and we should have one, or no, we shouldn't. And I just kind of slinked by, and I was like, thanks, fellas.
Yeah.
They get very serious about that. And at the time, too, with Canada Customs, when I worked for them, it's now CBSA, Canada Border Services, but they were very revenue-oriented, more than law enforcement. And that was another thing. Like, even when I was working an undercover unit, We're targeting, again, they're smuggling people. We're targeting, you got a lot of Chinese gangs up there, Asian gangs, things like that, and dope. And at the same time, they're wanting me to chase this little old lady because she might have a Rolex in her pocket that she didn't pay duty on, because duties and taxes on things like that are like 33%.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of got tired of that whole thing. I mean, alcohol and cigarettes, huge taxes. I had to do 2 flights a day when I was working plainclothes just for that. So, working the dog was great, but there's also at that time anyway, was a real difference in what they wanted us to do as far as law enforcement.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Vancouver and British Columbia, all of it are massive banks for organized crime. Like everybody in like huge gangs put their money there.
Basically Portland to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Oh, there was
dirty big. Yeah. We were at a 5-star hotel, and they said 2 weeks before that, there's a restaurant across the street. There was a hit right out front, and like Indonesian gang, I think maybe. Yeah. It was a whole paid hitman thing, and I'm like, what the hell is happening here in the nicest part of downtown, like the wealthiest
huge
part?
And at the time, we were doing a lot of stuff. Like the Hells Angels were controlling.
They said everything.
Everything, but they were fighting with the Vietnamese gangs. Now the big one is a lot of the Indian gangs. Like I'm talking, East Indian gangs, not Native Indian, but and a lot of the shootings up there are them taking each other out. But there's a bunch of people get caught in the crossfire, and it's changed a lot, and it was even prevalent then, honestly.
That's crazy. All right, so let's skip forward. The politics suck. You're moving on. Move to the U.S.
Well, I was living in the U.S. at the time because I was,
driving back and forth.
Well, cost of, I don't know if you know housing in Vancouver, but
it's like the most expensive city in the world, next to Oslo and Tokyo or something.
So I lived literally just across the border, and like I said, because of my parents, I had dual citizenship, which I never thought I might use for anything. And so 9/11 happened. I was fed up with the supervisor I had. And it literally killed it for me. I hated going to work because of the politics. Love my dog, but so I applied to U.S. Customs right after 9/11. Yeah. And I applied both for canine and for an officer position, and I got the officer position, which honestly later I was glad when I saw some of the dogs they were turning out at the time. Mm-hmm. They were, dog aggressive pit bulls that were working around people and reassigning 9.5-year-old Malinois with medical issues. And now their program's pretty good, but at the time I was kind of grateful that I didn't get it. So I worked, got hired there, went through FLETC, and I worked at the land border for, I guess, 6 years. And then after 6 years, I applied for a position as a federal agent with Air and Marine Unit. And at that time, I was one of 2 females of 300 agents across the U.S. And so we were driving boats out of Bellingham, which I thought would be the greatest job on the planet. And really, I mean, if you're familiar with some of the islands there and whatnot, I mean, unless you have air support, it's kind of a tough place to work. So it was pretty much, we would drive around in boats and where we go for lunch.
Yeah.
And
can you tie some knots? Are you pretty wicked with some knots?
Some of it, yeah. I'll practice my bowling later. But it was great. Like people said, oh, that must have been great. It was a good job, but it was boring. We arrested 2 people in a year and a half. Oh, and gosh. So a lot of it was, I was like, I'm going nuts here. Like so to go back, when Ken and I got married, and this is a test, 2003. So it'll be 20 years this year. Anyway.
Me too, as a matter of fact.
Oh, congrats. Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, I was still working, and he was working, running a canine unit for Canyon County Sheriff in Idaho. And we did the back and forth thing, and finally it was like, okay, well, somebody's got to go one way or another. And I said, look, I moved for somebody once. I'm not doing it again. So he came out there and was debating on whether to continue in law enforcement. He'd been a cop for 10 years in Riverside County, 10 years in Idaho, trained a ton of dogs. And but he'd always kind of wanted to start his own thing. And actually, it was my dad that kind of pushed him and said, look, she's got a good job with benefits. Try it for a year. If it doesn't work, then you know what? What have you got to lose? Yeah. You still got all your certifications. You can go back to being a cop. So we started. We bought our current place in 2004, fairly close to the border where I was working. It already had a kennel and whatnot, and we started, training and selling some dogs. And it was for anybody who's done it, it's tough to get going. Even when Ken had a great reputation in the industry and was known, it's still tough to break into. And we didn't, he'd always worked patrol dogs, but he trained a ton of floppy-eared dogs. He trained for multiple agencies. And so when we started out, what were we going to do? Everybody was doing patrol dogs. And so we kind of fell into the floppy-eared dog market, not kind of by accident. Plus, we didn't have the overhead. We could source dogs locally in the U.S., that kind of thing. So a lot of other trainers started coming to us, hey, I've got a class. I got 10 pointy-eared dogs, but I need one lab. So they would come to us. So we've sold to a lot of the other big vendors, started getting, selling directly to police departments. And now we've got a lot of federal contracts. We sell to TSA. We've got, state contracts. Washington State Patrol we've had for years. I sell to Canada Customs. I feel a loyalty to them and to their
big
program.
Circle.
Yeah. So anyway, but it's a ton of traveling and whatnot. When I was still working, all my days off, my nights, that kind of thing. And especially with the Air and Marine job, they wanted you to travel a lot. They wanted you to make appearances at things, and to go back being one of two females, they want me out there if there was like a promotional thing or whatnot, which is really not my forte. I'm not interested. But it just became too much. I'm like, we can't run the business, or I can't, and do the business side of it and look for dogs and still maintain my job. So I took a 3-month leave of absence from the feds, and 2 days after it, I said to Ken, it was like a weight off my shoulders, and I said, I don't care if we live in a camper on the side of the road, I'm not going back.
Yeah.
And so we just continued to build the business, and now we sell probably average 100 dogs a year, and I've been doing that since, like I said, since 2003, 2004.
Yeah, occasionally, like I'll get a text message from Ken. I live in, for those listening, I'm normally in Oklahoma, and Ken will text me and be like, oh, I'm going to be in a random town outside of Tulsa. And I'm like, what are you doing down here? He's like, I'm looking at a lab. I'm like, oh, all right. So we'll go to dinner. Yeah. Or like when Ken comes to town, comes through and buying dogs and just like randomly. So
we travel a lot. Yeah. It's been good. You know what? I enjoy it, but we met a ton of great people. We've been doing the HYATT conference is fantastic. I always promote it to people. I'm like, if you want to come and learn some stuff, we've been doing a booth at HYATT for, I think we've only missed 1 year, as far as I know, every year.
So now have you done the whole gamut of importing, buying here, and breeding?
We've never gotten into breeding. Well, actually, here's a funny story. We tried the breeding thing once. We had a really nice shepherd, and we thought, this is when we first started, and we were going to breed this dog, and it was actually one of the Vancouver City Police guys. I won't name him, but his dog was also an import. We were going to breed to this female. So she goes into heat, and we've done the testing and stuff. Never bred a dog. And we put the two of them together, and it's just not happening. Yeah. And Ken's calling a buddy who does breeding and going, she's mounting him. This is not working. He's like running away from her, and what do we do? And he says, well, get a crate or a hay bale or something, and you kind of hold her over the hay bale and bring him in and let him do his thing. And after a while, it just wasn't happening. And Ken's like, this is just wrong.
I'm not doing that.
But the great part was we did get some really good pictures of the female mounting his patrol dog. And of course, we sent those all around the Vancouver Police Canine Unit. Right. So, so the breeding, that was the end of our breeding. Forget it. It takes, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I think most programs have found you can take the two perfect dogs and that you think are going to produce a litter, and you get them in there, and you maybe have one or two dogs out of a litter, and you've got to raise them now to a year old or whatever. So it's just not cost effective. So we have imported some, but I source dogs all over Canada and the U.S. Yeah. I've gotten great dogs from gun dog kennels. From private homes, people get the cute puppy and they think it's going to be great, and it's an active hunting dog, and they're living in an apartment, and suddenly they're going, crap, it's destroying my house, it's eating everything in sight. It's not a bad dog, it just needs to do something. People are stupid. They buy cute puppies. So
what breeds are you doing?
We're doing almost strictly floppy-eared dogs. We will do some shepherds and mouse, but not dual purpose, just single purpose. If I don't keep them in the kennel, but if somebody wants them, I'll bring them in. We've got plenty of places to get them. But the majority of I would say 90% of our dogs are Labradors. We'll do Springer Spaniels, short hair pointers. When you get a good one, they're great, but not my favorite breed. They're odd, but
he's done a couple decent ones, and then a couple that are
the most success we've had is the ones that one that we bred. We bred a litter, and I raised them from, 6 weeks old to be detection dogs. Yeah. So, because I get people all the time that ask, like, how do you get the pointers to sit? And I'm like, well, about that. So, I mean, from a very early age, they learn to sit, and I don't allow them to deal with birds. And because a lot of times, because Oklahoma and the central portion of the U.S. where I'm at has a ton of hunting dogs. We have a large population in this country of very, very, very talented gun dog trainers.
Yeah.
The issue becomes the dogs that get washed out of that have already been on a hunt at least once. They've already been on birds. So they get they already have this entire reward history of some behaviors that we don't like as canine trainers. And so the most success I've had with them is when they've been purposely bred or purposely raised for that program, or the ones that are super hard mouthed that tear birds up and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. You can chew on a tennis ball all day long.
The chicken killers, I love those. Somebody says to me, they kill chickens. I mean, I'll take it.
I'll take it. Yeah, it's sold. Take him. Right. So yeah, I mean, the pointers, I'm getting ready to import some right now. Before we started recording, we talked about, it seems like about every 4 to 5 years, we go through a cycle of the floppy ear prices just going through this roof. And the last time it happened was when the whole cargo screening thing was supposedly going to happen, and then everybody was starting to hoard dogs, and then we had a glut, and now prices have gone to the point where I'm importing, like at the end of this month, I'll have 6, I think, floppy ears coming in from Europe that I'm getting cheaper from Europe with shipping than sourcing them domestically in the United States, and I suspect in 2 years it'll be the exact opposite again. So
the prices and demand have gone through the roof. And when we first started that, it wasn't really the intent. It just kind of, we fell into that. And like I said, demand has just gone crazy. But yeah, the pointers, when you get a good one, they're fantastic. I mean, I've had pointers you have to choke off a Kong.
Oh yeah.
But then you get other ones, like you say, especially if they're outside. Man, they see a bird or a butterfly and they're gone.
They're squirrely. They're
just they run around, pee on everything. I can't stand them.
Now, as pointer handlers listen to this episode, we're gonna get hate mail.
Yeah.
We've
had some great ones. I just find when I look at dogs, I can, if I look at 10 labs that I think are going to have the qualities I want, I'll take a lot more labs maybe out of that 10. I probably have to look at 10 pointers to take one. Yep. And the other issue is, like you say, with the gun dog people, some of them have had so much e-collar, or if they've been force fetched. We don't force fetch dogs, obviously. I want a dog that naturally, is crazy about that toy, whatever it is. Will, if he likes a squeaky, he likes a Kong, he likes a whatever. But I have had some labs that have had so much e-collar, their independence is gone.
Yep.
And, we always say, okay, if he's got odor, I want him to follow that and just drag me to it instead of going out 5 feet, stop, look at me, what do you want me to do? That's just...
preparing them for those field trials, and they start them so young.
Yeah.
I mean, and we've had Pat Nolan on twice, and I mean,
that's a great guy.
And he's he's a ninja with an e-collar, but I mean, when you start them that young, they do, and of course, Pat has been able to break that and has those beautiful videos of them sending dogs out, like over the curve of the earth. So he's figured it out, but a lot of times
that's impossible. The earth is flat.
True story. But being able to break that dependence on handler intervention, right, and then giving him to a new handler who won't get out of the fucking way all the time is one that just drives me insane. So then you compound that, and it's the same problem, and we see that a lot too. So and that's the first thing I ask when I look at gun dogs that have age. I'm like, how much e-collar work have they had? And they're like, oh, we've done this and this. I'm like,
it's pretty rare. I mean, we've had a few. I worked actually with a bird dog trainer. He's in just actually north of Oklahoma City. And a few years ago, I bought a lab from him that had a bunch of bird dog training. And again, I love watching those dogs do what they do, but it's not my forte. I don't the doubles and the singles and the right and left anyway. But this dog was so cool, this little chocolate male. I'm like, I'm going to buy this dog. And so I paid way more than I normally would for a dog. And I brought it home. And I thought Ken was going to kill me. And he's like, what did you do? What are we going to, we don't, this is not our thing. We wasted a bunch of money. I'm like, well, I know, but watch him work. I mean, he was really, and he wasn't, he had a lot of independence. That was probably one of the reasons that this dog didn't make it. But anyway, and they didn't have papers on him, so he couldn't trial. That was the big deal. Anyway, and Ken says, I don't know what we're going to do with him. And a week later, we had the special forces guys from the base down in Tacoma call us, and they said, hey, we need a dog for this new project. I just, my Canadian came out, didn't it? I know. I didn't say A though. Right. Anyway, and they said we need a dog that's got some bird dog training, and where can we go? Do you know anybody? And Ken's like, well, as a matter of fact. And I was like, oh, that saved my butt. But anyway, they came out, and the stuff they're doing with this dog, I probably am not supposed to talk about, but it's super cool. But they do all the directionals and that kind of thing. And it ended up, they came back later once they've been training him for a year and showed us some of the stuff he was doing. And
That's cool.
Just the coolest dog. Yeah. But normally you got to be careful of that.
And then you get into trouble because they're like, can we get another one? And you're like, oh.
Yeah, that was a one-time deal, And again, I know people where we can send them. And that's always the thing. If somebody comes to us for a dog and we don't have, what you're looking for a patrol, or, there's plenty of people I know in the industry who've been doing it long enough that we'll send you to, that I know are going to take care of you. If I don't have what you want, hey, I'll help you find somebody that does. So
I got one more question and we'll wrap it up. I know you guys, Pacific Coast Canine does handler schools, full training, trainers courses, the whole thing. When you get to a certain size, it's like a necessary evil to some people. How do you guys fall on selling green dogs? As far as like a department with their own trainer comes in, just wants to buy a green dog. I know some are like, I don't do it anymore because they're ruining the dog. Some are like, I have to because I make money doing it. Because I was selling green dogs to larger agencies and fully trained and whatever. The profit margin is low, but it's hard to say no. It's hard to say no on a sale.
You obviously do better when you do a class with it, and like we were talking before this, about some of these wanting like 2, and even there was a company a few years ago that, again, I won't mention, that was offering a 5-year guarantee, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. I mean, we all know that a handler can destroy a dog in a short period of time, if they're doing stupid things. And it's hard even if you do a training class, once they leave, you and go back to bad habits or whatever, there's, that can be a problem. But so no, we do sell green dogs. We've been doing that for years. The thing for us, it's been very successful. I would say a majority of our business is selling green dogs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But we also do them started. We do fully trained, like you said, with a handler class. Plenty of the agencies, like Washington State Patrol is one we've had for years. That they have their own unit, their own trainers, and they're close to us. They come up if they've got a class and they need 5 dogs for this class. They'll probably come and take 7 or 8. And then we'll get a couple of back once they decide which ones they want to keep. But the good part for us too is we have so many different clients. So I've got everything from, say, customs, where they're searching people in airports and they want a taller dog that'll do, that's super environmentally stable, to a little Podunk, Oregon Police Department that's just searching a few cars on the side of the road. And maybe that highest drive dog that I've got isn't going to tolerate that lower work level. I mean, so usually we can, everybody wants something different, which for us is good. So we can usually place most of the dogs. Obviously it's an art, not a science type thing. It's so we end up with a few that don't make it, but I think our initial testing and screening, which I do a lot of, Ken's doing more of the classes and stuff. I do a lot of traveling, but no, we've been pretty successful with that.
That's cool.
But the odd time, sure, you get one back that you're like, what have you done to this dog? And I mean, it's,
why did he hit 4 legs when he left here? What the hell happened?
Yeah.
Why are you in a wheelchair?
Oh yeah. And we've had people want to, but you guaranteed it. And it's like, I'll be very fair. We've replaced dogs that we probably didn't have to, but we've also had departments injure a dog and come back and go, well, it's an injury, but we can't afford 2 months of downtime for it to recover, so we just want a new dog. Well, no, that's not how it works.
No. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you to either maybe get a dog, get a class, or even say, hey, I got dogs, maybe you should come look at, how do they get a hold of you guys? Where's the best way?
Usually by phone. You can get us through email. Pacific Coast Canine, Ken's number is the main number on there, but they can always get a hold of me too. Just
what about social media stuff?
We do social media. I'm honestly a terrible Facebooker. I keep it. We have a Facebook page. You can reach out to us through that for sure, but usually just a call or a text is the easiest.
Yeah, if the administrator is a little bit older, he's going to use email, or your website.
Yeah.
If they're a little bit younger, they'll jump on social media,
sure.
I find.
Yeah, and happy to provide people references. We sell, a lot of people will say, oh, well, you're on the West Coast, so, it's too far. Mm-hmm. We have to get a dog over here. And I usually tell people I can probably do it at a better price than some of your guys on the East Coast can. We ship dogs all across the U.S. and Canada. It's not a problem.
That's great. That's cool. Okay. Well, really glad we got to trick you into coming down here, man. It was good.
Well, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate you guys, focusing some more on some female handlers, because I think it's it's tougher in law enforcement and it's tougher in canine. You know, there's
Yeah.
a lot of egos in this business, and you know, but Ken's always said, he said, some of my favorite handlers, he said, I love training female handlers because you know they're open to learning and
Pretty moldable, a lot of them.
and you know
They
what,
don't
there's
have
a
any
lot of
bad
great
habits.
handlers out there, and so happy
Cool.
to
Pacific
promote
Coast Canine.com, right? PacificCoastCanine.com.
Letter
K
K
number
letter
9.
K number 9, Pacific
Cool.
Coast letter K number 9.
All right, Laura. Appreciate it. Thank
Thank you for having me, guys.
All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you.
It's no secret that I love my ALM suit from Arnaud out at ALM Canine Equipment in sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. I've had that thing forever. Eric affectionately refers to it as my Carhartt suit because it's so thin. I've had multiple sleeves put back on it, send it back to Arnaud. He fixes me up every single time. The fit and finish is top notch, and it fits me like a glove. I refuse to go anywhere without it. I work sport dogs and PSA without it. I just did a trial in California and wore that thing. I work police dogs pretty much every day of the week, and then I will use it for personal protection dogs as well. So hit ALM Canine Equipment up on Instagram and Facebook, and then go to ALM K9, letter K number 9, equipment.com, and use the discount code WD Radio for 10% off of your first order. And this is completely custom, so made to measure. Pick your colors, whatever you want to do. Arnaud will work with you. You can make it as thin or as thick as you want, but hit them up. ALM Canine Equipment.
Ever dreamed of having your own kennel but don't know where to start? Horizon Structures has taken all of the guesswork out of building a kennel. Everything is pre-built to your specifications and preferences and then assembled and dropped off on your land. Boom, new kennel. Hooked up to your electric, hooked up to your water, put dogs in it that day. And those things are amazing. You've got to see them to truly believe them. Get on the website, horizonstructures.com. You can custom build. You can buy one that's already built, go off of their design, come up with your own design. They'll work with you. They always are running discounts on the website with ready-to-go kennels. The kennels are already ready to go. There's always discounts. Horizonstructures.com. Check them out.